Hey, this is Eric Bazilian from the Hooters, and you are listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any pod catchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We would like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Eric Bazilian
of the Hooters.
Yeah.
He's also promoting his solo album from 2021 called Bazilian.
And he's working with Alexis Cunningham.
Yeah, with her track, The Medicine.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about a European, they have a tour.
European tour, yeah.
40th anniversary.
All right, well, hey, let's get to that interview. Good night. Eric, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Eric, this is going to be fun to talk to you tonight.
Hey, Jeff, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for, over a year worth of correspondence and trying to get this set up, so we're excited to have you.
Well, pleasure being here.
Excellent. So,
It works out.
recently, you've been working with Alexis Cunningham. Can you talk a little bit more about this collaborative effort with her?
Yeah, well, Alexis Cunningham and I go back, it's about 8 years now. I first, more than 8 years, I checked my emails. My first email about her was in May of 2013. And, I met her, she was 21 years old, and, I'd had my heart broken many times by promising young artists. Spent a lot of time and money that, for naught. But I met her and really got a great feeling from her as a person, and her voice and her songwriting was already more evolved than most people I started working with. And we just started having fun, writing songs, recording songs. We had a little tiny bit of a summer hit in Sweden in 2014. She actually came over to Sweden with me. We did a little tour of small venues with a Swedish artist for that summer. And we just kept on doing this because we had fun, and we've done some genre hopping, and I think we finally landed on a real place for her that's true to who she is, and it's contemporary on the one hand, but old school good on the other. And a lot of that had to do with finding our secret sauce, my Slovenian co-producer.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Let's talk about the new your newest single, "The Medicine." I was listening to that today, and what a cool song! It was. I wish that was on the radio around here.
Well, feel free to pitch it. I mean, we so we had a vast repertoire already by 2018, 19, and then I was living in Sweden. I was living there for about 5 years. Now I'm back in the U.S. now, and I'll be binational probably for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But through a Slovenian artist I met in Stockholm, I met Martin Stibernik, and went to visit him in Slovenia, and I just knew he was the guy, to bridge the world for us. And he came over here first in the summer of 2019, then January of 2020, and we did a whole album. And the last track we did was The Medicine, which he just said. He said, I have an idea for just a vibe, and he played the opening guitar riff, and by the end of the day we had the song and spent a couple of days recording it and putting saxes on it and all kinds of fun stuff. And then of course we know what happened in March of 2020, so the whole thing sort of got put on hold.
Oh, yeah.
But
I want to kind of switch gears on you. We've talked to many artists that are kind of part-time United States, part-time Sweden, numerous. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about what drew you to Sweden, and what draws so many artists from the United States to reside in Sweden?
Well, not the winters, I'll tell you that. And this was the fifth winter in a row that I swore I would never spend another winter in Sweden.
I just said the same thing about the Midwest.
My story, well, yeah, there is the Midwest. And Philadelphia's no picnic either, believe me. But no, my story is not an uncommon one. I married into the faith.
Ah.
I married a Swedish woman 20-some years ago. And, we raised our family here. And then in 2017, we just decided to move for a year. We rented out our house. We were going to stay for a year. But our daughter was finishing up high school, and she enjoyed it there, wanted to spend her last year of high school there. And our son graduated from college, and he moved over there, and we just stayed.
Mm.
It's it's a great place. I can't say enough good things about it. My life is, I have a split life now. I have a life here and I have a life there.
Mm. Oh, awesome. In 2021, you released your 4th solo album. We've spoke to numerous artists that have released new music during the pandemic. Did you find that the COVID times to be a time of artistic renaissance for yourself? Can you kind of go into a little bit more detail?
Yeah, I mean, I probably would not have done that album if it hadn't been for the global pandemic.
Mm.
There were a lot of COVID albums.
Yeah,
and mine definitely addresses that to some degree, although mine really was driven more by my feeling of dislocation, by being stuck somewhere that wasn't home.
Mm.
As like I miss everything.
Yeah.
I didn't set out to make another solo album. Actually, it's kind of funny the way it happened. As I told you before we started recording, I go into these interviews cold. I don't usually want to know what to expect because I like being surprised.
Sure.
So imagine my surprise when back in May of 2020, I got on the phone with a woman, and it turns out that she's a medium, and the thing with her podcast is she'll channel someone that you want to contact on the other side. So I lost my dad in 2017, so I said, yeah, I want to talk to my dad. And he through she told me that I had 4 songs written and recorded, but that there was a 5th song I'd forgotten about, and I needed to finish it and put out an EP.
Mm.
And I said, gotcha. I don't have a song I'd forgotten about. But after the podcast, I opened up my hard drive and I went, oh, yep, there's that little idea I had called Back in the 80s. Guess I'll finish that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I figured, let's just do an album.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's talk about that song, Back in the 80s. There's a lot of cool references in there. How did you come up with some of those ideas?
the same way I come up with most of my ideas. I just sing and stuff comes out. I do remember the song started. I have a voice memo where I just sang "Back in the '80s," da 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 da, and then I sat down with my mandola. That's a mandola that's sort of driving the song, and came up with that little chord progression, and then recorded that into Pro Tools and started singing. And the first verse came out, and the pre-chorus, the part about "Those were the days, my friends," came out. And that's when I put it away for the first time. And after my little conversation with my father's ethereal being, I wrote the chorus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
As you've evolved over the years as a musician and a songwriter, can you kind of talk to us a little bit more about the evolution of your songwriting from the time of your early years of the Hooters up until now to your solo work?
Well, here's the funny thing about that. I approach songwriting like a beginner. Every day, literally every day, I say to myself, I don't know how I wrote a song yesterday, and I don't know how I'm going to write a song today. And I pick up an instrument, because I usually write at an instrument, and I start playing, and if the planets line up, something good finds me.
It's just that simple, huh?
It really is that simple. Obviously, experience helps. It makes the process run more smoothly. But sometimes it's a hindrance. Sometimes I find myself falling back on old tricks, old patterns. That's why collaborating with someone else, especially with Alexis, because she's such an intuitive writer and a real storyteller. I don't usually approach a song with a story to tell. I hope that the song will tell me the story. Some of the deepest lyrical songs that I've written have literally just come out, and I channel them, I record them as I sing them, and then I listen back and I go, wow, well, I guess I really was thinking that or feeling that, or I didn't know that was going on. It's very informative. It's cheaper than therapy.
Jeff, you got the next one.
Well, so you're a singer and a multi-instrumentalist. Which one did you do first? Were you singing first or playing instruments?
Oh, I'm a singer by default. I never wanted to be a singer.
Yeah.
I wanted to be Keith Richards. I wanted to be Pete Townsend, who is a great singer. Anyway, but I never wanted to be the voice, and neither did Rob. But Rob Hyman of the Hooters. But we found ourselves in a situation where we were going to put together one last band, give it one more shot, and we didn't have a singer. So we just sort of looked at each other and went, I don't know, can you do it? I don't know, can you do it? Let's try.
Well, the thing that fascinates me about the Hooters was at an early start that you guys were using the mandolin. And I remember back in the, early 90s when REM was at the height of their career, and they were interviewing Peter Buck, and Peter Buck was, I'm really, bored of the guitar. That's why I picked up the mandolin. And MTV kind of approached it like, REM was doing something really cutting edge, and I'm watching this interview going, but the Hooters have been doing this for forever. I guess your thought process on, there's a lot of bands that kind of stole the tricks of the Hooters. Do you look at that as being maybe a copycat type thing, or do you feel like, hey, they took our idea and they went with it, and like we were instrumental in this band's growth? How do you look at things like that?
No, I didn't invent the mandolin.
Right.
And, it's not just the fact that Peter Buck played mandolin that made that song a success. He came up with a really great riff. And he could have played that riff on a guitar and it would have been the same record. I'm glad that he got inspiration from the mandolin. I don't get bored playing guitar. I love guitar. It's my first love musically, but I do love playing other instruments. I love playing the mandolin. I love playing the mandola, the Swedish mandola, which is the instrument you hear a lot of on the on this last solo album. I play saxophone. I play piano. I play hurdy-gurdy. I get inspiration jumping between them. Sometimes I'll start a song on guitar. If I get stuck, I'll go over to the piano.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that kind of leads to the next question I have. So whenever I'm watching, videos of you on YouTube or of Hooters performing live, it seems like you always have a different guitar in your hand. So the question is that how many guitars do you own?
I can't give you a number. Honestly, I don't really keep count. I will say that I own a lot less guitars than most people who have been doing what I do for as long as I've been doing it. I'm not a collector. I don't have a collection. I have a selection.
Nice.
I have one of everything that I want, except with a couple of notable exceptions, and multiples of a couple. It's funny though. Every time I have a different guitar in my hands, there's pretty much only one guitar that I've used on all the Hooters recordings.
Oh, really?
Yeah, literally all of Nervous Night was one guitar. It was a 1960 Les Paul Jr.
Oh, wow.
Let me go through the One Way Home was mostly the Junior. There was a Schecter I used on that a bit. Same thing on One Way Home on Zigzag. Then I got my Gold Top. I have a 56 Gold Top Les Paul. That is my absolute alpha guitar. It's the only guitar that matters. That's the guitar I played on the Joan Osborne record. I played that on One of Us.
Mm-hmm.
But those are pretty much my go-to guitars now. I mean, when I tour with the Hooters, I bring one of the Juniors, and then there's if you're referring to the different guitars, there's a Finnish luthier, a guy named his company's called Vuoden Saku, who makes these really cool guitars that have a very unique shape, and it's not trying to be a Telecaster or a Strat or a Les Paul, and I love those guitars. I actually have 3 of them, and I tour with those a lot just because I'm not nuts about taking vintage guitars out on the road, even though I have great guitar techs who take great care of it. But at some point you just kind of got to let them let the old guys stay home.
Exactly. Well, I kind of want to switch gears back to your solo career. When you compare your evolution of your first solo record to this past solo album, and I guess I don't want to be redundant about the questioning, but do you, as far as a comparison and contrast of where you were in 2000 to where you're now here in 2022 as a songwriter, has really much changed for you as on the solo artist end of things?
Well, I spent 5 years making The Optimist. I spent 5 months making Bazilian. And this album, I wanted this album to just sort of be a time capsule of where I was at then, which, I think pretty well does. Although a couple of the songs were written earlier, and Help, which I didn't write at all, but I did bring my own spin to. But there's a consistency to that. I kind of chose a limited palette. Mandola, mostly the guitars were this 1964 Cuccinelli plastic guitar that I found in a music store in Stockholm. And I recorded this latest album in my basement in Stockholm. The Optimist I recorded at my real studio here in Pennsylvania, which has a drum kit set up and a Steinway piano and all everything at my fingertips. I was very limited as to what I could use over there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very good.
So in a way, the Optimist is more of a masterwork. I'll always look back on that one. I think is sort of the hidden gem.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Bazillion was just sort of like, no, this is where I am now.
Oh, very good. Jeff, you got the next one?
I was just looking at Hooters have a couple of live albums. What are your thoughts on recording live albums?
The Hooters are a live band. I mean, we've made some great records, but we really shine on stage. The energy is palpable. Our connection with the audience, so it's great to have the have the audio document of it. We actually have we recorded a live show in Germany, the last show of our 2018 tour, which was going to be a DVD for our 2020 tour, but that tour never happened, so we just put it up on YouTube.
Okay.
The only thing about making live records is I miss the days when we recorded them on tape, because now you can go back and fix everything, and that's very time consuming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We did a live album in 1993 from a couple of shows in Germany, and we, aside from one little guitar bit that I had to punch in because someone had knocked the mic off from in front of the amp, it was exactly as we performed it. And vocals are out of tune a little bit. There's some jazz in the endings, but that's very verite. Now, I get a hold of those Pro Tools files, and I'm in there tuning, I'm in there re-recording stuff. You can't help it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. In between your solo work in the Hooters, the Hooters released Time Stand Still album in 2007 and the 5x5 EP in 2010, and it's been a while since the Hooters have released an LP and an EP. Can you talk a little bit more about the songwriting for the Hooters opposed to writing for your solo endeavors?
Writing for the Hooters is a very different beast. Because when Rob and I are the two-headed monster here, and any songs that we play in the Hooters, even if one of us is singing it, the other one has to feel like they're singing it too. So it's not a personal perspective. It's a we perspective. It's a shared perspective. And sometimes that's a hard flow to get into.
Sure.
We're at a point now where, we can play for 3 hours and still not be playing songs that fans want to hear, which is amazing considering that we don't really have that many albums out for a band that's been together for 14 years. But, then there's that, the inevitable question. Okay, well, we take the time and expense to, write and record 10, 12 new songs. What do we take out of the set?
Yeah.
And that's like an interesting question, so a catalog like what the Hooters have, and it's not 20 albums, but you guys have your fair share of material. How do you guys whittle it down a set list when it comes to, Hooter live shows?
Well, the set lists tend to create themselves because of the multi-instrumental aspect of our shows. We do have to sort of craft it around who's playing what at any given time. We have three pairs of guitar playing hands who also play mandolins and mandolas and keyboards sometimes. And then for me, you got to figure in the saxophone. So it can get complicated. And, there's just a flow. There's some segues that will always be that way.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
It is interesting, though, that our set lists are locationally motivated. For example, in the U.S., And We Danced was our biggest hit here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the song we're most known for here. In Germany, it never really was a hit, although it does end the show, because what else can you end a Hooters show with? But in Germany, Johnny B was the big hit. And here, sometimes in the U.S., we don't even play it. But over there, that's the showstopper. That's where we get 10,000 Germans going, Johnny B, how much there is to see?
And you don't perform Johnny B at your U.S. shows?
We do, but if we're doing a festival show and we only have 75 minutes, sometimes we won't do it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Jeff, you got this next one? Going to take.
Well, I just want to take it real quick. You kind of glossed over the Joan Osborne "One of Us" thing. Looking at that song over the years, just looking back on it, what are your thoughts of how that song's lasted?
I thought about "One of Us."
Yeah, from Joan Osborne.
"One of Us" was really the beginning of my career as a songwriter. That was a song that wrote itself, and every songwriter will tell you that about their biggest hit, and that's just the way it works. My wife had just moved over from Sweden, was not my wife yet, and we watched the making of Sgt. Pepper late one night between writing sessions with Joan Osborne. We were writing her album at the time, and she wasn't familiar with recording, music business, and was interested in the 4-track recording process. And I pointed out the fact that the wires on my dining room table was a Porta Studio, a 4-track cassette recorder, and she said, "Oh, record something for me." So I had a guitar riff that I'd been playing all day, and I made a little track around that, and she said, sing it, and I literally opened my mouth, and that's what came out.
Oh, awesome.
Wow. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I had I knew I had stumbled on some basic truth, it was a therapeutic moment, because it really kind of reflected my worldview at the time, and still, but it never occurred to me that song was going to have a life outside of, me and my friends.
Yeah.
And the next day I brought my demo into our session with Joan. I played it, and Rick Chertoff, who was the producer and the A&R guy, after I finished playing the demo, he looked up at Joan and said, Joan, do you think you could sing that?
Wow.
And,
yeah.
Which was brilliant, because if he had said, do you want to sing that, she very well might have said, nah, not really my kind of song. But she said, yeah, I can sing it, write out the lyrics, and we recorded her and my guitar, and we all knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an amazing song.
Magical. The Hooters are active playing live shows. What is the touring plans looking like for you guys this summer? It looks like we can see the light at the end of the tunnel with the COVID restrictions dropping in many states right now. What's the plan?
We have a show in Lucerne, Switzerland on March 23rd, which we're very much looking forward to. And then we're touring Germany from June something until we finish up in Stockholm on August 6th.
Yeah, very good. And it just seems like the world is starting to come out of its shell now. It's so exciting to see live shows coming back. I guess that kind of leads to the next question I had for you is, the Hooters played a few live shows I talked to you last fall in Cancun, Mexico. You were in Cancun while I was in Cabo. How did it work? How did it all work out for you guys? How did you land that gig?
Actually, the booking agent for that festival is a guy that was in a band in Philadelphia called Pretty Poison, who I've known him since probably since the time the Hooters started, and he invited us. We get asked to do a lot of 80s related shows, and they're not always that practical for us because we have a decent sized production that we really need to do our show. But it worked out for this.
Oh, so cool!
And it was a blast.
Now, what resort did you guys play at?
I honestly can't tell you what it was called. It was nice. I remember that.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
We had a great time. When I first got there, it was Hard Rock Day, and there were all these 50-some-year-old guys running around with like Dee Snider wigs and all these and their wives, girlfriends showing stuff that you really didn't want to see. And I thought I'd landed in the ninth circle of hell. But things mellowed out significantly the next day, and it was really a lot of fun. All the MTV DJs were there, all of whom were old friends.
Sure.
Some of whom I've stayed in touch with. Mark Goodman, I've stayed in touch with all these years.
Oh,
nice.
So cool. All right, so I got one last question for you, and we'll leave you alone for the evening. All You Zombies is my all-time favorite Hooters song, and I know I read some little blurbs here online about it over the years about how it was banned from some radio stations back when it was first released because of the religious connotations behind it. Can you talk a little bit more about the writing of that song and were the myths all true about the radio stations not willing to broadcast it at the time? How did it work?
Actually, I think that's probably a myth that was perpetrated by the PR department at Columbia Records.
Ah, okay.
I mean, the song raised a lot of questions. I don't think it raised a lot of eyebrows. There's nothing in that could conceivably be taken as offensive.
Right.
I don't think. It's not a judgmental song at all. Same thing with One of Us. There are people that say that song was banned and raised protests. It was never banned from any radio station. There was one protester at the Grammys who said he was from the Catholic League, which has nothing to do with the Catholic Church. It's a right-wing political organization. And the problem he had with the song was that he said it, quote, raised questions. Well, we'll have no questions here, but I mean, All You Zombies does have, it's a Bible story.
Right.
And how we wrote it interestingly enough, All You Zombies is the oldest surviving Hooters song. You could actually say that it's the first Hooters song.
Hmm.
We wrote that in January of 1980, before we had a name, before we had a drummer, when it was just me and Rob trying to write reggae and ska rock songs. And we started jamming on that chord progression, and we wrote a chorus pretty quickly. And then kind of like one of us, I heard the first line in my head. I heard this low voice singing, "Holy Moses met the Pharaoh," kind of like Paul Robeson, you know, the old spiritual singer.
Yes.
And then, you know, we were off and running. We wrote that song in basically in the time it took to sing it.
Wow. It's just it's such a phenomenal song. It's very catchy. When I was a kid, high school kid, when it came out, you know, just caught my ear. Loved it. Still listen to it religiously to this day.
Religiously.
You like that? You like that pun? Yeah. So, we're out of our allotted time. Before we let you go for the evening, is there anything that you would like to plug or promote that we forgot or we missed tonight?
You know, no. I mean, my life is the Hooters, and it's my solo career, for what that's worth, and you know, moving to the future, the work I've been doing with Alexis. And stay tuned, because there's some very exciting stuff happening with her.
Oh, fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, I can't wait.
Well, before we let you go, we're going to have about 3 to 4 weeks of episodes released before yours. So we're looking at right around a month, and then we'll release it. I'll get Jeff, the editing wizard, over here. We'll get it all ready for you. I'll send it to you immediately. If you could share it on your socials, that'd be fantastic.
That's great.
It was just a real blessing to have you on the show tonight. Like I said, I've been communicating with you for about a year to get you on the podcast, yeah. So it's been fantastic.
I'm sorry it took so long, and my communication went dark for any periods of time. But and if you have any further questions, anything you'd like clarified, feel free.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Hey, we'll be back in touch with you in probably about 4 weeks. Sound good?
Okay, great. Pleasure speaking with you.
Take
thanks,
care.
Eric.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Take your chances.
Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both their eyes. They roll the dice. Take your chances.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.